Yep. And we're live right now.
Okay, so do I have a motion to exit executive session? Louis, and seconded by Robert. All those in favor?
6:01.
Nick, do you mind getting the other people, please? Thank you. Unless they don't know. Are they on? Oh. So we'll move to B, accept resignation of Ed Tech 3 at the Madawaska Elementary School.
Second.
Ben, did you want to say something? Or
Yeah, just Alexa was a new hire this year, and she was actually working with my wife in Title I. Jen had some wonderful things to say about her. Just so happened that another position opened in the community that she lives in, and instead of commuting every day, she decided to take that opportunity. It's also more aligned to what her aspirations are, and she would love to be an English language teacher someday, and so that's really closely related to her new position. Not a reflection on not wanting to be with the Madawaska School Department.
So any more discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Valley Unified Think Tank.
And I didn't know if you wanted some more time to discuss anything with regards to the think tank, given the fact that we are going to retool here with legal counsel. I don't know if you want to table this until that time, or if you want to have any open discussion.
When's the next VU meeting?
The next meeting is 23rd of November.
Where's that one located?
This one is
You don't mind asking?
Madawaska.
Gonna be here.
That'll be at the high school,
Yeah, library.
and that's 6 o'clock.
What was 33's comments and kind of key takeaways, think tank? Anything on their end that they stressed or wanted for?
I think along the same lines.
We were saying,
They're not open, they're non-negotiable for the site
I
selection.
think they're standing by their letter, basically is what they're doing.
Yeah. I think that the gist of what I understood or took away was everyone's willing to examine RSU, an RSU formation. Everyone is open to possibly looking at the representation on the Valley Unified Board of Directors. But there still needs to be some conversation around that. And then what none of the parties agreed upon, well, actually you agreed with SAD 33 that I believe I heard you and they say that that's a non-negotiable. It's going to have to stay in principle, whereas SAD 27 said it's a non-negotiable, it has to be re-examined. I did also share at that time that we no longer have funds to revisit site selection. So I don't know how we'll proceed.
Sounds really good.
We have calendar adjustments to look at.
So we did, as we shared with you at the beginning of this school reintegration plan, this is a working document that, we have to treat like a working living plan that we adjust as need be. And we aspire to start school, have school fully in session, and try to match what is a typical normal school year. And we've done a really, really good job doing that. If you look at what's happening across the country, if you look at what's happening across the state, We are one of the few areas in the nation where we can say we have pretty close to a normal school day and normal school year. Um, as we've been meeting with leadership teams and meeting with teachers, and Giselle and I speak with the union leadership often as well, just trying to keep a beat on everything. Our administrative team, we meet often and debrief about what's happening. You already know that Giselle and I and Peter and Sharon and Lucy, we meet almost every morning, every other day now to debrief. Starting to hear more about how much this is wearing on our teaching staff. It's wearing on all of us, and that's just all the added responsibilities. Students arriving in the classroom a little bit earlier, leaving the classrooms a little bit later, lunch periods a little bit shorter, more duties. It's less time for you to plan effectively for the next day. We don't have, at the elementary school, we don't have ethics release time anymore, so that's a planning period that's gone. Just less time. So we sent out a survey about time and wanted to gain the staff feedback on what they're feeling with regards to their thoughts about how to provide them more time. And as you can see in the results on page 2, if given the choice, which of the following suggestions would be your preference for creating more time to prepare for the new challenges of school days? Almost 50% of your teaching staff said that if you modify that calendar to reflect that the early release days now would become professional days, that would be something that would be a welcome change. So if you look on that draft calendar I've provided you, I've given you a snapshot of what that looks like. You'll see that in September and October, there are early release days. We'd like to keep this Friday as an early release, just to give more time for all boards to consider this change. But moving forward in November, you'll notice that there is a staff workshop day on a Friday every month, and that would be the change reflected. And what we would do, in speaking with the administrative team, half of that workshop day would still be used for PD as its original intent in the early releases, but the other half would be given to the teachers to plan. So it'd be more planning time for them so that they can, prepare for the upcoming weeks, get caught up with everything based on the time that they're missing. Right now, we are all in an executive order to waive the minimum school days. So in a typical year, we have to have 175 school days. You'll notice in this example here, by shifting those early release days, the student days fall to 167, and the staff days stay at 182. So staff are still at work on every day they were intended to be at work. We're just flipping a couple half-day early releases for workshop days to provide more time to the teachers.
So that, if I can ask, the current days that are on the calendar, you've got half that there's instruction to students, the second half is for the teachers.
Correct.
Planning day.
Yeah.
So we're looking at getting away with the kids wouldn't have to go to school for that day, there'd be a full teacher.
Correct.
And how many, so that would bring us down to 167 days.
Correct.
For students. What were they at prior to COVID?
Prior to COVID, 175 or 176, depending on what you would.
Prior to COVID, so
Yeah.
there's a loss of 8 or 9 days.
Yeah. Keeping in mind, our students are already ahead of the game because we are fully in school, and a majority of students in the state and the country are on a hybrid or remote model. So they're not even getting school, some kids, or they're getting it 2-3 times a week.
K through 12, we have about 40 kids that are remote, approximately.
Yeah.
Specifically, you know your number?
27.
27 for you, and I think Lee's around there too. Yeah.
Do I have a motion to accept the change in the school calendar?
Moved in.
Robert, do I have a second? Nick?
I will say that when we met with Jenny and Bonnie to go over this last week, it was like a huge relief. Yeah, I actually asked them, would you consider us approving it? And then they were like, oh, if you do this, this is gonna be amazing, because that time is precious. We kind of modeled this, on our October 5 workshop day. You'll see when the high school returned from harvest on October 5, we structured the day that way as kind of like a dry run, where the majority first half of the day was structured. The other half of the day was for teachers, and the collaboration was just amazing. The teachers getting caught up, they were networking, and that kind of spawned the thought process for pitching this to you now.
Any more discussion, questions, comments?
Am I correct in saying that with the remote learning, are there not going to be any snow days this year because of that?
Yeah, so the tricky thing with snow days, right now, if we have a snow day, because we're not required to make up the day, because there's no minimum requirement, we actually wouldn't have to have anything. We'd have to figure out, though, how to make up the time for staff. So what we're going to be working on is putting together a preemptive plan that in the event we have a snow day, we can quickly switch to a staff virtual professional day, so that we can capture that day for staff. Students wouldn't have to make up the day. If, however, we go back to a minimum requirement, and the minimum requirement can go back into effect on January 30th, is the sunset of the current executive order. If the governor decides on January 30th that there's no more executive order, what they're going to do is prorate the remaining days, and they're going to find out a new minimum requirement. It might be 50 days, it might be 70. At that time, if we would have a snow day at that time, where there's a minimum requirement, we'd have to figure out a provision for lunch. You can't have a school day without lunch. So the only workaround that I think would work, because I can't see calling our cooks and bus drivers in on a storm day to now prepare lunches and bust them out. But if we see a storm coming, if the storm's going to hit on Thursday, and we make a call on Wednesday afternoon, send the kids home with a lunch for the next day, I think that's the only way that we would be able to say tomorrow's a remote day, because they would have their lunch.
Any other questions?
So, but we wouldn't have the means or technology in place to let the kids do remote learning on a snow day. 'Cause I know that was a pitch you made to us once upon a time, but we're not there. We're not set up to be able to do it that way.
We would have to, when we're sending home those lunches, we're also sending home that technology. It's probably a huge undertaking, so I don't know that, you're probably right, we're not ready. Can we get there? I hope so. I hope so. Let's just not have snow days, so.
Yeah, there you go.
Stop it.
Okay, so Robert moved and Nick second. All those in favor?
Right now, your next meeting is scheduled for Monday, November 30th, but like I mentioned earlier, we'll try to get another special meeting, hopefully soon, to continue their discussions.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Louis, seconded by Nick. All those in favor?
6:15.
How did it turn out?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.